Today's episode is brought to you by Surfshark. Now, this video is not available in your location. Does that sound familiar? If it does, let me tell you why a VPN could be the solution to all your problems. Because a VPN doesn't only increase online privacy, which you need, trust me on that one, it also helps you avoid hackers and helps you access entertainment because the content you see is limited to your geographic location. But if you use a VPN, you can change your virtual location and forget about restrictions and censorship. So if you can't wait to watch Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus or any streaming platform, you can unlock new libraries with a VPN. And if you can't watch a YouTube video in your region, connect to a different location with a VPN. Can't access certain websites or apps through a school or office network? Again, try a VPN. So get Surfshark VPN at surfshark.deals/TTD. That's surfshark.deals/TTD. Enter the promo code TTD for 83% off and 3 months free. But now, on with today's show. Now, at a time where there is so much polarisation and division in the world, I wanted to share an inspirational story about how two people who once worked in the police and decided to leverage technology to help vulnerable people with complex problems. Because I just love stories like this. And I don't want to reveal any spoilers on this one, but it is a cracker, and I think we should just dive straight in. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK, where you can join me, Gary and Sarah from a company called ECINS, and we'll learn more about their story. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Pettengell and I'm Director of Services at ECINS. We're a non-profit social enterprise organisation. And we started back in the UK in the year 2000. We both were serving police officers at that time. And I was more pursuing my career in the police. But I think Gary's kind of always had burning ambitions to have his own company, a real, entrepreneurial leaning towards that. So that's when we started, and because of the kind of people that we worked with, we were able to recognise, where people that needed support, and organisations that supported them weren't really joined up in any way. They weren't able to effectively talk to each other, communicate in real time. So the whole idea of going down this technology route to provide that platform, that's kind of where it started. So we provide complete software solutions for organisations that support people that need to work together to be more efficient and effective and provide a better service, basically.
Hi, I'm Gary Pettengell, so CEO. We call it the Empowering Communities Group. We've got 3 companies. One in the UK, one in the US, and one in Australia. So that's keeps us busy.
First of all, a big welcome to the show. And one of the things I always try and do before we start learning about your successes and the path that you're on is always try and learn a little bit more about my guests and how they got where they are today. And you were both previously police officers, so I've got to feel there's something to unpack there. So can you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, or what lit the spark and what put you on this path that you're on right now? And Gary, I'll ask that to you first.
Yeah, thank you. Well, both Sarah and I were both police officers. It seems like a lifetime ago now. My story in that was, and it sounds quite bad actually, because I spent a lot of time I loved neighbourhood policing.
Yeah.
And I had a great footbeat. I had a seafront footbeat. So it gave me lots of time I did do some work, but do you know what I mean? A lot of time to walk around and to think. But I think what the police gives you the opportunity to work in lots of different fields. So I did neighbourhood policing. I worked in the youth offending team in a multi-agency environment. I worked in the domestic abuse world, and I suppose it gives you sort of the opportunity to experience real life see what people's lives are like. And really, for me, it was looking at those challenges, and really, I mean, obviously, I think it was about we joined in the 80s. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd never used, it was a type, there was a type, but that was I remember the tech then was, what were they called? Telex machines.
Telex machines.
So you'd come through and they could, I laugh about it now, but another police force would fax you a photograph of someone who was wanted, and everybody knew it would be like this black blob that would come to be wait for the fax and things. So obviously, when we started, there was no tech, and then gradually, as things evolved and started to think, well, we could apply this to some of these issues. So pretty much that's where it started. Sarah's story is slightly different.
Yeah, so obviously a police officer as well, and I've done the kind of normal patrol response kind of things, but most of my career was spent as a detective. I was a detective inspector, and I had responsibility for the kind of what was called then the Vulnerable Persons Directorate. So that encompassed vulnerable adults, vulnerable children, families that were struggling, domestic abuse and sexual abuse. And just really from the kind of, you do really get to see, as Gary touched on there, you do, as a police officer, really get to see people in real life at their very worst, at rock bottom, when their life has really kind of kicked them in the teeth. And just really experiencing that frustration as a manager, kind of making decisions not really based on the whole picture, because the other organisations that you were legislated to work with, such as social services, child protection, all of that, working on their own systems. So and I can remember going to the social services office where they were still working on paper files and actually sitting there kind of copying down information that I needed, and just really it not being joined up, making decisions about really quite high risk, really, without having that information to you, at your fingertips. And, being at meetings where we were kind of all working off paper files and seeing that there's a kind of missed opportunity if there was, a platform where people could work together in a safe, secure, shared environment, actually we could work much more efficiently and effectively.
It's such a great backstory you've got here, and I love how it shaped what you're doing now. And of course, it was that path that both led you to ECINS, which I believe started as a germ of an idea back in 2000 when you were both still working at the police force. But I don't want to reveal any spoilers. So can you share the story behind the company and those problems that you set out to solve from the outset?
Yeah, it was so ECINS is so the story really, I mean, it goes back to the late 90s. Getting it from a policing perspective, I mean, I got involved. As I say, I had a seafront beat in Great Yarmouth, and so got involved in a business crime reduction partnership, and because one of the issues there was that you had a situation where you had businesses on the seafront, and they were quite happy to be not happy, but is the wrong word, I suppose. But if they were a victim of crime, they would put up with it as long as everyone else was a victim of crime. It was a bizarre situation that was going on. I sort of got them together and said, look, we work together here and start to work together. We can stop this happening. We can stop you becoming victims of crime. But then what that did, it displaced it. So actual fact, it was very effective. But the surrounding towns, because we were then pushing out those travelling criminals, were going that. So then, of course, they wanted to be involved, and very quickly it became apparent that a national crime reduction partnership would work, because the type of crime was travelling criminals, so they would travel around the country. And so in 2000, it started from there, really, as from crime reduction part. And then as you start to look at it, you're starting to think, well, actually, and we'd already touched on this from a policing perspective, why do people commit crime? Sometimes it's just financial, but then there are other issues which happen. And then really, so we were just going along quite. It was working. It was a good initiative, and we were doing this. And then quite randomly, in June 2010, I had an email from the Home Office in London, and said, would I come down for an informal chat? I always remembered it. I can remember it. My life didn't changed dramatically after that point. So I went down to the Home Office for this informal chat, and the question that they posed, and this informal chat was standing room only in this room, I think, and the question was, is it possible to have a national database to manage victims, offenders, and vulnerable persons, recognising that organisations would continue to use their legacy systems? So if you think back to 2010, we were in a recession. I mean, there was when I turned up, they said, we can't give you biscuits. Because there's cutbacks, so you can't have any biscuits. So, and this is it. So, and I'm sitting there, and I think, I can see, I know how to do this. And by the time I left the Home Office and got to Liverpool Street Station to get the train back, they'd already emailed and said, look, can we come and meet you? Which they did, and a few weeks later, we just showed them how to do it. This is how you can do it. And 6 months later, so January 2011, ECINS was born. Basically, it was live. And what became very apparent very quickly is that it was getting people to come away from this silo mindset. So they weren't, just. And if you think, so where we've been asked, the question, can you have one system to manage victims, offenders, and vulnerable persons? Very quickly, what became apparent was it gave you the ability to work collaboratively to deal with the person as a whole. Because with respect, a lot of the people that the organisations were dealing with were victims, offenders, and vulnerable people all at the same time, with complex needs. And a great example of that, you may have heard of County Lines, which is on the news in the UK. And so that's an absolute classic of that, because you could have a missing 15-year-old from London who's there, is classed as a vulnerable person. They're a missing person. Where are they? Who then get arrested in Exeter because they're dealing heroin from an address. So over there, they're an offender. In actual fact, this is an exploited individual. So you can start to deal with people, and pretty much that's the story really, and just how it's grown over the years.
Such a great story there. And of course, ECINS, from there, you've created this joined up support to people in need while also empowering those being supported. But who uses the platform? Who are your customers, essentially?
Well, we've a wide variety of customers, really. And because we work in a very much encouraging collaboration with the people that use the platform, we encourage them to bring forward their ideas. They've really helped to grow it and shape it. So back in the early days, it was predominantly used for managing antisocial behaviour. And the key partners that involved there would be the police and the local authorities, because they've got responsibility to deal with that. But then they would bring on their partners. So there might be mental health teams involved, drug and alcohol, substance misuse providers. And then the recognition and really our customers have driven the areas of business that it's used for now, and have brought on the partners as they go. So housing providers are customers. So quite often it's a whole county that would kind of buy the solution and then roll it out for different areas of business across that, and bringing in different partners and organisations. And that's often led by like a district council or the Police and Crime Commissioner's office. And they'll have a vision of, eventually they can manage all different types of areas of business and bring on board their partners. But there's really no limits. And our our philosophy has always been maximising participation and no user licenses, no limits. So actually, once you kind of bought the platform, you've got the license for a year, you can invite as many partners, do as many areas of business case management as you want. So it's could be women's aid, domestic abuse, service providers. We've got projects that support prolific offenders, as I said, housing, employability, pretty much any part of complex individuals, any of those organisations that would naturally come together to support someone and treat all of their concerns and issues so can actually get them and move them on to a better place, would all be customers and partners of the collaboration network that's really grown over the years.
And I'm conscious we'll have a lot of decision makers that could be listening to our podcast today, and you're ticking all the right boxes, and they're going to go into their office and say, I had a great conversation about a great company the other day, and then they'll mention something to their IT director who'll say, well, how does it work? What's the technology? So for those people, can you tell me a little bit more about the tech that makes all this possible?
Yeah, so it's software. So we're a software as a service provider. And as Sarah said, it's about maximising participation. It's about it's coming away from that silo mindset. But that in itself presents challenges. And early on, if you actually think about it, I'm going back now, 2011. I mean, in the early days, it's like, well, hold on a minute. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, how can this be done without oversharing? How do we, now it's GDPR, data protection, all those things. So from the tech behind it, I suppose I look back now and I think we were fortunate. But if you'd have said that to me back then, I definitely would not, because we were being challenged, as you said, IT security, the Home Office, the National Police security team, and they were throwing loads of challenges at us. As I suppose, maybe I got a little bit paranoid at the time, but it was almost an objection. So it really was, they were saying jump, and we were having to go, oh, okay, how high? And obviously, as a social enterprise, that was hugely expensive. But what it enabled us to do, we met those challenges. We met what were potentially perceived as blockers, and we will look, okay, how can we work around that? And so as we develop the platform, we've got sort of quite unique granular access permissions, which means that we can people can work in this way, but they can just share a piece of information with one named individual and things like that. So, and then of course there's all the other encryption levels and the requirements are there. So pretty much now we've always worked. So there's two types of conversations we have. There's the conversations with the professionals, the practitioners who just want to get on with it, and then we have the conversations with the IT people. So we've built this platform now, which is unique in as much as it's available on a geographical basis, and so the geographical basis, and then you can use it for over 80 different areas of business. So whether it's from rough sleepers to a fraud investigation or trading standards type things, you can do that all on this one platform.
Well, just to bring to life everything that we're talking about here today, do you have any use cases that you could share just to help listeners understand the kind of difference that tech is making and also how it might work in their world?
Yeah, so I can think of a couple of examples, quite big projects actually that we've been involved in where, we've made a measurable difference really to the organisations involved. So there's a project that's been running, I think it's 3 years now, it's into its 4th year in London, which is across the whole of London, and it's dealing with and supporting vulnerable young people that have got exploited and kind of swept up into the kind of gang culture, not through choice necessarily, but just, kind of being exploited and getting involved in and forced to deal drugs and carry weapons and that type of thing. And there are 3 organisations, it's funded by the London Mayor's Office, and there are 3 key organisations involved that support these young people. And we've brought them together, streamlined their processes. And what that's actually meant is, as the project has grown, the number of people that they can now support has grown, and they can support 260% more young people than they could previously, where they were just kind of had got huge admin burdens and were not able to communicate and take referrals effectively. So, and that's obviously all those people, that's less victims of crime. That's a more efficient way of working and actually returning those staff, because they've got no more staff. So the technology itself has meant that they can support more people with the same staff that they've got and actually have more time to actually do what they should be doing, which is that face-to-face contact and support of those young people. And another project which springs to mind is, again, a large project across Birmingham, which supports families in crisis, basically. It's an early intervention project. So trying to actually, organisations, it's an NHS Trust-led project, trying to actually get in and support those families before things go badly wrong. So, that early intervention to actually head off more serious issues in the future. And again, because we've helped them to streamline their processes through our technology, they're able to take in self-referrals. So families can reach out, from a mobile device or a laptop, whatever. They can reach out, access that support, and that support can be given across 11 localities across the city. So we've brought organisations together. They're rolling out to GP surgeries and schools. They're all key organisations that previously would have been all working separately and probably be oblivious to what's going on and why a child might be presenting in such a way at a school, or all of that's going on in isolation. We've been able to bring it all together. And again, they're in a position now where they're supporting 15,000 families, which is a significantly greater number than they would have been able to support if they were working in their traditional silo, non-joined up way. So
that's phenomenal, and the impact that you're having there is fantastic. And something I always say on this podcast is technology works best when it brings people together. And Gary, I read a great post by you about achieving collective impact in 2022 will actually require human services to collaborate across sectors. Can you expand on that for everyone listening? Because again, I think it's a great example of using tech to bring these things together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The article is sort of focusing on the US, but the principles are exactly the same whichever country you're in. I mean, we've sort of been very keen to provide the ability to collectively manage and support people, premises, and places. That's what we've done. But when you look at, you're trying to help people with complex needs, it's important to be able to do that not in a silo mind. You've got to come away from this silo mindset. You need to be able to deal and support a person as a whole, because there's lots of things going on in the person's life, and you can't pigeonhole them. Oh, that person's an offender, or that person's a vulnerable person for this, or they're just a victim. You've got to be able to do it collaboratively. So we try and make that happen, and we won't get into various funding type things, but for some organisations, they end up seeing people as dollar signs. and they don't want to share that person, but you've got to share that person because you're going to support them. For me, I think there's 4 key elements. One is to take this, what we call a one front door approach. So give people who are looking for help, give them an easy way to look for that help and to tell their story once. Some people they've got a traumatic story to tell, and if you've got to keep repeating yourself to this organisation and this organisation and this, and what we have found, and we're fortunate. Now we work on lots and lots of different projects around the world. But the theme is there. People think, "Oh no." That from the professionals, I think, oh no, that we've got to keep that. And of course, you've got to protect people's privacy and their data. When you actually talk to people, they've actually said, "Look, I'm looking for help. I'm happy to tell my story, and if you need to then tell that person over there, that's great because I need that support." So this one front door approach really does help, and then you can start to get into it. So it's we support people who support people. And they are busy. They are really, really busy. So you can use the tech to do that heavy lifting. So, for example, you can automate processes. So, we've got loads of examples where the people who self-refer in. So, if people are self-referring in, it can be done in a very, very simple but encrypted process. But by a family referring in, looking for support, are effectively populating the case management system. They're creating their own case, their own profiles. They're doing, they don't know that, but it's because you're automating that, which frees up a huge amount of time so that professionals aren't doing an admin role. They're actually doing what they want to do, and that's supporting people. So you're then freeing up that time. Then you get into the third element, really, which is the real-time information sharing. It's not a case of waiting for the next case conference in a month's time, or do you know what I mean? They're on those delays, so it's enabling that early intervention to happen, so you can speed up those processes, stop things getting out of control, and then fourthly, it's the collaboration, the key bit. All of this, the theme is about this collaborative working, and how. To improve. I mean, we by ECINS has come along, and by the way that it's set up and our ethos and our whole aim, we've improved that collaborative working between professionals, even if they're in the same organisation or in their different organisations. And for us, the next stage that we wanted to then take it to the next level was that relationship and that collaborative working between the professionals, the practitioners, and the people they're trying to support. So I think sometimes that gets missed. It's almost saying, it becomes a team approach. If someone's looking for some help, then they've got to become part of that team in order to do it. So we're looking and using some technology through secure portals whereby we improve that relationship with people, and not just with them, but also their support networks. So that's it.
And what stands out from both of your backstories is how, when you first started, you saw firsthand vulnerable people grappling with problems such as gambling, addiction, family violence and sex crimes. And I love how you find yourself wondering that there must be a less authoritarian and more compassionate way to help people, but by leveraging technology. And there's something incredibly human about that, and it's incredibly cool at the same time. But what makes you hopeful and possibly even excited about how emerging technologies will continue to help you do just that?
Well, as Gary touched on there, we've taken the collaboration between professionals within an organisation, that obviously expanding out to other organisations so they can all work together. And then the next step for us was actually getting the supported person involved, that member of the public, getting them involved. So we've already created what we call our client engagement module, which links the client, it gives the voice to the client, so the member of the public, so actually they can sort of securely interact with the support team that are working with them. But taking it that next step forward, we'd really like to get into the predictive stuff. So, because we've got a lot of data at our fingertips, really, from lots of different organisations, taking into account all aspects of a person's journey and the complexity of their lives, but actually taking that and starting to predict what's going to work better, what interventions should you try first as a professional, and also that kind of machine learning where a member of the public has got our client engagement module, which is also an app. They can have an app on their phone or on their iPad or whatever, but it's actually starting to recognise through the kind of responses that they're giving actually what's going to progress them along their journey faster. So what kind of information are they looking for to help to support them? So it's that kind of predictive and machine learning stuff that really excites us, that we can drive even more efficiencies, but equally provide a better service to our people that support people.
And you've both been on an incredible journey, but what's next for ECINS? Where do you go from here?
Earlier on this year, we made that decision. It's, are we getting too old, or do we continue on the journey? So we did, and we went. Last year, actually, I say this year. Last year, we sort of went into the US, which was great, and we're working with some organisations and national organisations to help use ECINS to standardise school social work across the US, which is huge project, which is great. So for us, it's like growing our global network of professionals. It's joining them up, all working collaboratively, sharing best practice, and that's really that's as our journey continues. It's bringing people together, looking at that data. Because really, someone who with complex leads is the same whether they're in the US, Australia, or the UK. So we're just going to continue on this journey. We've got some inquiries from Canada, which is great. And of course, the bigger this network we can create, the better that we can learn from one another in supporting people.
And we began this podcast talking about both of your origin stories. And as we come full circle now, I'm going to ask if there is a song, piece of music, movie or book that has inspired you or helped you in your career. And if you can share your choice and possibly a story behind it, and we can leave the listeners on an inspirational note. And Sarah, I'll put you under pressure and ask that one to you first.
Do you know, this is such a hard question, actually, because there's so many things that do influence you, as you live your life, really. But I think probably, and it might sound a bit weird, but one of my sort of earliest memories of really kind of sitting up and noticing something and thinking that's so powerful was the film The Karate Kid.
Oh yeah.
And when you actually think about that film, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure many of your listeners will have seen it. But there's so many life lessons coming out of that. Self-belief, discipline, patience. So if you think about trying to catch the fly with chopsticks, humility, facing your fears, the whole theme of the Karate Kid being bullied by the others, and just so many life lessons. You're always learning, that whole self-belief thing, and actually, doing things for the right reason. So that's probably my favourite one to tell you about.
Well, there's nothing weird there. I had a guy suggest pirate metal for our Spotify playlist recently. And I thought exactly the same as you about Karate Kid back when I watched it. But there's a YouTube video come out since, not sure if you've seen this, that retells the story. And actually, it's Danielson that was the bully all along and Johnny's the innocent one. But I'll send you that video. It'll make you smile. But Gary, you got a tough one to top there.
I have. I gave some thought. I was going to go for a business book. And I was going, because that's the sensible. That's what we'd be doing. And then when Sarah came up with the film, I thought, no, because it was. And for me, it's A Knight's Tale. Yeah. And there's two quotes in that stick out for me. So one, which is from John Thatcher. So if he believes enough, a man can do anything. And that, for me, is we've had a vision. We've been on a journey. We've had a vision, Sarah and I. And we believe we can do it, and we've made it happen. But also, I think as a parent, and as an ex-practitioner, one of the key statements, and the one that really sticks for me, is the quote, "Change your stars and live a better life than I have." And I do believe that our users, our customers, they believe that, and they want it for the people they're trying to support. That's mine.
Love that, and a beautiful moment to end on. But before I do let you both go, for anyone listening want to find out more information about anything we talked about today, or even contact you or your team at ECINS, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, go to our website. So it's ecins.com. That's ECINS. Yep, go on there. Our contact details are on there. We've also got an ECINS Foundation. So we're where we do fund projects. We've just got a community support program just launched in Australia. We've just done one in the US as well. So, we have got a foundation. We can support things, but go to our website, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, one of the things that really stands out about what you guys have done here is you started out, you saw vulnerable people grappling with real issues. And I think something a lot of people forget is we're all just a couple of decisions or a few pay packets away from being in that exact same position. And the fact that you guys recognise that and were looking for a more authoritarian and more compassionate way to actually help people by leveraging technology, that is what this podcast is all about. Like I always say, technology works best when it brings people together. So you've created something fantastic here. And I would wish you the best of luck for the future. I'd love to stay in touch with you, see how things continue to evolve. But thanks for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What an inspirational story of using technology to empower vulnerable people and communities and helping them take action in their own lives. And they're both so humble about the real difference that they're making all over the world. And I'm so glad to be able to hear and also share their story around the world too. And I also want to put the microphone out to everyone listening. I want to hear more stories like this. And equally, if you've got experiences or insights or any questions, whatever it may be, you know me by now. My door is always open. My email address is techblogwriter@outlook.com. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes. But don't just hit connect. Please send a little message with it. Tell me where you're listening. And also my website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you need any help launching your own podcast or help writing or ghostwriting your blog content. But that's it for today, so it's time for me to sneak out the back door. I'll return again tomorrow with another guest, but a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.